We can all pretty much agree that wasting time sucks. Once it's gone for good. And let's face it, most people are scared of that one goof up that could undo all the hard work they've put into practicing and mastering the guitar. The problem is, nobody knows what that mistake is going to be until it happens. Unless, of course, you're a professional guitarist and educator for the past 20 years who has experienced these mistakes firsthand and through his students. So today, I'm going to be showing you the 8 mistakes that you can make that'll waste your practice time and sabotage your success on guitar, and show you the solutions to all of them. The first mistake, and I see people make this all the time, is not setting clear goals. Without clear goals, it's really easy to lose motivation and direction in your practice. You know, when you first pick up guitar, it's pretty easy to get started. You just learn a couple chord shapes and you try some basic tunes. But after a while, when it comes to moving past that point, there's just so many things to learn and practice, and vague goals like getting better at guitar don't really help you very much. Now, in order to overcome this, they say that goals don't exist until you write them down. So all you need is a pen and paper and all your problems can be solved. There's a ton of different ways to go about this. I like a method called SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And for me, it all starts with songs. You know, what songs do you want to learn how to play? You write that down, and in the grand scheme of things, you know, that's going to make up your long-term goals. But when it comes to specific things, you know, thinking about that SMART thing, well, let's say you want to learn Country Roads by John Denver. Specifically, it has certain chords. You know, maybe the C chord is the one that's giving you trouble. So you're going to practice the C chord. Measurable, you're going to do it every day for 2 minutes, just going between C and G. Is that achievable? Yeah, it's definitely achievable because it's a small goal, right? Relevant? Of course it's relevant. You know, you need that switch in order to get better at Country Roads. I wouldn't just arbitrarily practice something. You know, I learn the chords needed to play the songs that I want to play. Learn hammer-ons because I found a song that needs me to learn hammer-ons. And then as far as time-bound, to me that just means short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Short-term are things you're going to be achieving in a matter of days, medium-term, weeks, long-term, months, maybe years. The second biggest mistake that you can make is to rush through the learning process. Trying to progress too quickly through new material without mastering the basics or really solidifying the things that you already know, you're going to end up with a shaky foundation. You're going to get frustrated, and you're going to have a lot of trouble when you try to push forward into that more intermediate or advanced guitar territory. I see this a lot with students who are actually pretty quick to pick things up, believe it or not. You know, they don't spend the time to get their fingers to really make the motions automatic. So they'll just memorize the basic shapes quickly. You know, they're smart people. And then they'll dive into some finger style and, you know, they'll be plucking a few and it doesn't sound very good. You know, like with strumming, this chord sounds okay, but when you're finger picking, you really got to nail the shapes, or else there's a bunch of like dead notes, right? The same thing happens with strumming and singing at the same time. You know, they'll get the strumming pattern and the chord shapes and it sounds pretty good, but then they start singing and the strumming falls apart, you know, and they don't really know why. And they're like, oh, I guess I'm just not good at strumming and singing. Well, in reality, it's because you have to make that strumming pattern automatic. You know, I have a whole process for strumming and singing because you really do need to go through every step painstakingly, you know, and the repetition of it, you know, really programming your physical body to make everything automatic is essential. People who spend a lot of time figuring out the basics are going to end up going way further, way faster in the long run. Patience and persistence are key to this. Another huge mistake that I see people making is skipping the warm-up exercise. Not only is there the physical aspect to it, you know, if you skip the warm-up and you just put full force into your muscles and joints right away while they're cold, it can cause muscle strain, issues with your tendons, and all that, you know, horrible stuff. But there's also a mental element to it. You know, yesterday when you were practicing a certain song near the end of your practice session, you were all warmed up. It sounded pretty good. And now you're trying to play it the next day with cold hands. It doesn't sound very good. And it's demotivating because you thought you had it and now you don't. This is a pretty easy one to solve. Just do some warm-ups. For me, This actually solves a lot of problems because sometimes I don't feel like practicing. You know, I have 2 kids, I have tons of stuff on the go all the time. I'm pretty overwhelmed, to be quite honest. And the idea of sitting down and concentrating and focusing on learning music, sometimes it's just too much. But I can always just sit down and commit to 5 minutes of mindless finger exercises. You know, you don't have to think about it. It's actually kind of relaxing. And even though I go in not wanting to practice, after doing my warm-up exercises, sometimes I start getting carried away and, you know, I end up going at it for like an hour learning some cool, new, interesting, fun thing. So you do the warm-up exercises at the start of your practice session for just 5 minutes. Make sure they're easy, simple, repetitive exercises that you don't have to think about. I have a whole bunch on my website. You can literally just play along to any one of those videos and that's it, you know. You don't have to do much more than that. And not only will that reduce your chances of injuring yourself, but it'll also help you with that motivational aspect. My next mistake is overlooking the importance of rhythm. When you're only focusing on playing the right notes or the right chords, or even the right order of downstrokes and upstrokes, without addressing that underlying rhythm, that's going to hurt your performance more than anything. Rhythm is a fundamental aspect. It's actually the fundamental aspect of music. It's what makes you connect to the song. You know, when everybody's listening and really getting into it, it's because the rhythm is there. You know, if I just took a series of notes and I just played them without any particular rhythm, you know, you probably have no idea that that was the melody to Stand By Me, a song that like almost everybody knows. When the night has come. But if I just drum some beat, even though there's no notes or anything, it sounds like music. And the solution here is to just get more in touch with rhythm. It starts with counting along to music. Not just counting to yourself as you're practicing guitar, you know, counting out your strumming patterns, that's great too. But listening to songs and learning how to count along to them, how to clap along to the song. You know, it's really important to engage in rhythm outside of guitar, like jamming beats on your steering wheel or the kitchen table when you're just having your morning coffee. You know, just listen to some songs and just drum with your fingers. It may not seem like structured practice because it isn't, but it is working on a fundamental skill. You know those people, maybe you have a friend who just seem to effortlessly pick up guitar. The thing that allows that to happen 99 times out of 100 is being able to feel the rhythm. And this is how you can catch up and develop it for yourself by incorporating rhythm into your everyday life instead of just when you're practicing guitar. Another massive mistake, and this one's pretty obvious but still worth mentioning, is neglecting proper technique. If you ignore technique, you end up with all these bad habits that are going to be really difficult to break later on. You know, it can be things like finger placement, making sure that your finger's close to the fret so that the strings don't buzz. You know, having your thumb in a good place instead of off to the side. Your elbow, your shoulder, you know, all that posture stuff. Guitar is a really complex instrument and you're touching the strings in exact spots, you know, and fractions of a millimeter can be the difference between a clean note and a buzzing one. It will also put extra strain on your muscles and joints if you are playing inefficiently and using too much strength to get the job done. You know, that can have long-term effects. The solution to this, I actually have 2 solutions. The easy one is to just get a teacher, but that does cost a lot of money. It works, you know, they'll keep pointing stuff out like, hey, you're slouching, you're letting your guitar slip away and you're peeking at your fingers too much and that's bending your wrist, you know, and it's great having someone just be on top of that for you. But if you want to get that same experience yourself, I would start with posture. I teach it in my course, Learn Guitar Once and For All. I also have a little bit of that in my free crash course. I'll put links to that stuff if you're interested. And what you do is you just write these things down and you tackle them one at a time. So for an entire week, you're gonna focus on making sure that your guitar is pointing forward instead of pointing up so that you can see your fingers easier, you know, and you just write that down on a Post-it note. You just write guitar forward and you put that wherever you practice and you'll just keep seeing it for the whole week. You just keep reminding yourself through that written down Post-it note. And it's kind of like having a teacher point things out, you know, put your thumb in the right spot, thumb, and that's it, right? After a while, these little things, they'll add up. They'll shave off those milliseconds from your chord switching. It'll get your fingers a millimeter closer to the right spot, and you'll start sounding like a good guitarist. The next mistake that people make a lot is skipping basic music theory. Many beginners neglect it because they either think that it's not essential or that it's too difficult. And I totally hear you. Music theory is often taught in this very dry, academic way that makes it seem so complicated. But the truth is, music theory, in terms of difficulty, it's like grade 2 math. That's how difficult it is. You know, it's like addition, subtraction, measuring along a line, and even a basic understanding of a handful of key concepts will allow you to see trends and similarities between songs, and it'll significantly enhance your playing and make learning new songs easier. A solution to overcome this is to take my music theory course. I'm just kidding, sort of. You know, all you really need to do, like what I do in my course, or what I'll just tell you right now, is to do real things that you're going to use. You know, not just learn theory for the sake of it. Things like knowing the notes on the bottom 2 strings so that you can move power chords around those strings, or use them as the roots for bar chords. Or you could just take a scale. You can just type this in Google. What notes are in a G major scale? And then you number them. G is 1, A is 2, and so on. And here's a good trick. 1, 4, and 5 are major. So G, C, D, those are major. Cross out the 7th chord. The rest are minor. So you end up with all the chords from the key of G. And you can use that to learn songs easier because you know, like, okay, I'm in the key of G, so it's got to be one of these 6 chord shapes, you know, and you can learn by ear that way. You could even write your own songs that way. The next mistake, this is pretty closely related, is ignoring ear training. You know, this is another one of those things that gives people flashbacks of piano lessons as a kid where they're singing like do, re, mi, fa, sol, or identifying intervals, you know. But the truth is, unlocking your ear early on will carry you further than anything. Your ears store musical knowledge. Like, I don't remember chord symbols and go by my visual memory and like see a chord chart in my head. You know, when I'm playing music, I hear chord progressions and I let my auditory memory take over. You know, that's how I can just show up at a party and play requests that I've only ever heard on the radio without having to look up sheet music. Relying solely on sheet music or tab without developing your ear can limit your musical abilities. To solve this, you can do the technical thing. You know, you can learn to hear cadences, intervals, chord progressions, and so on. Or you can have fun with it. Just sit down and try to figure some things out by ear. At first, you're gonna suck at it. But after a while, you'll start to really get the hang of it. You know, imagine if you sat down every day for just 5 minutes a day and just tried to play what you hear in your head. I recommend easy stuff like the melody to Happy Birthday or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you know. You do that just poking around like, you know, and after a year or two, you're going to get pretty fast at figuring out how to get the sound out of your head and onto the guitar. And honestly, that's the only ear training exercise that you'll ever need. You know, that other stuff is great too, but that's all you'll ever need. Now, the final mistake, it's not really related to playing, but it's still crucial, and that is ignoring proper maintenance and care of your instrument. If you neglect the maintenance of your guitar, it can lead to serious issues like fret buzz, it'll go out of tune, or it could even get damaged. Like, I have a guitar that I left in the attic and the frets started popping out, you know, and suddenly certain notes just stopped working. And that's pretty extreme, but, you know, it does happen, and even slight damage from poorly maintaining your instrument can make it harder to play, and that'll give you the illusion that it's your fault. The chords will be too hard to play, that'll demotivate you, and it'll slow down your progress. So I recommend regularly cleaning your guitar. Just wipe it down after you play it, keep it in tune, and if you live in a humid or too dry of a climate, keep it in the case. Otherwise, keep it out in a place with consistent room temperature and humidity. The worst place I can think to put your guitar would be right over a heater or beside the fireplace. So keep it somewhere where the temperature is going to stay consistent. You know, even if you do take good care of it, eventually as the wood settles, it'll kind of go out of whack. So it's a good idea every couple years to take it into the shop to get adjusted and maintained by a professional. You know, that'll make it so much more enjoyable and easy to play, and it'll make it sound its best. That's a wrap on today's discussion about common guitar mistakes to avoid. I hope you found these insights helpful and informative on your guitar playing journey. Remember that mastering the guitar is a process that takes time, patience, and dedication. By being mindful of these mistakes and taking proactive steps to address them, you're already well on your way to becoming a better guitarist. If you enjoyed today's video and found it helpful, don't forget to give a thumbs up, share it with your fellow guitar enthusiasts, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Good Guitarist for more valuable tips, tutorials, and guitar-related content. If you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, drop them in the comments down below. I love to hear from you. Also, if you want to take your playing further, don't forget I have all these courses designed to help you. I'll put links to my course page down below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fun time practicing, and I'll see you soon.